Okay.
Gregory, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we had such a cute little pre-show, but I'm ready to dive into the real deal.
I'm so excited. Feel free to repeat any of the sentiments you said in our pre-show. Gregory, give us your elevator pitch. I feel like that's like a Clubhouse staple, is just being able to pop into the room and introduce yourself to strangers. So give us what you are.
Right. A struggling intern. No, could you imagine? No, the elevator pitch of Gregory Littley. Let's see. I have practically a decade of digital marketing experience. The first few of the years I was playing in the agency world. I worked at an independent agency where I got to touch a lot of different brands and do a lot of different things. And I learned a tremendous amount. It was probably the most I've ever learned about myself and about the world. It was an amazing opportunity. And then about 5 years into that, I transferred into playing with brands on the brand side. I thought it was like, the next kind of step. It made a lot of sense to me. So from there, I worked a little bit on Laura Mercier. Then I went and joined Revlon as digital director for portfolio brands. And then each of those iterations, I noticed that I was always kind of up against trying to figure out or trying to get in contact with talent. That was always kind of like the hurdle. So for my next iteration, I was able to join a talent agency, Elite World Group, and I was able to be one of the people that started their digital arm, their digital department. And it was cool because a lot of people that I loved working with, I was able to bring and kind of create a team, which was really exciting. Because I love people and I love to be like a resource to people and help people. And then lo and behold, a little crazy thing called COVID hit. And, the team we were all kind of released, so to speak. And since then, I've been freelancing so much. And I've been kind of like plotting and thinking about my next move. I feel very blessed to have such like a wonderful network that enjoys me, remembers working with me, and comes to me with some wonderful projects to work on that definitely keeps me busy at this time.
That's great. I love when people can take their workaday life, to quote Moira Rose, right, and like convert it to something where you own it, right? Like you own your time, you pick who you work with. I mean, in many ways, it's like having a bunch of bosses instead of having one boss, because every client's a boss. But it's a great way to like really be living out your values and like bringing what you want into the world.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, so you're completely right. Having multiple bosses, totally true. And I also think that like for the first time, whether I wanted to or not, had some time to kind of like slow down a bit. I mean, me and my husband, prior to 2020, we traveled so much. We traveled so much together. If we were away from each other for longer than like 3 days, we wanted to meet up. So if he had a long work trip or if I had a long work trip, we would try to be with each other as much as possible. So we had this like the luxury of kind of just, being so free and able to move around and go to LA like once every 3 weeks. And then, if we had to go to Austin, go to Miami, go over to like London, I did a work trip like 5 months before COVID in Paris. So that wasn't really happening last year. And I was able to kind of think deeply about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to put out in the world. I think last year was so important in so many ways. And I'm genuinely very much in touch with the way I feel and the way others feel, and I think that's really important. So what in this like new phase, I've been really trying to create imagery that I want to see and that I don't think exist enough.
Oh, I love that. And I loved too, you did this amazing shoot recently, like, and by shoot I mean like a whole content rainbow universe. Like you really thought it through. You were so generous to go on Clubhouse and tell everybody like nuts to bolts like how you created.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that was I mean, that was such a good idea. So the Clubhouse was, I mean, the shoot was wonderful too. But I was, I just had this, like I said, I just haven't been able to see so many of my friends, and I'm so blessed to like have some wonderful people in my life that I started just doing these like mailers. I started one right around the election to kind of, even though all of my friends that I love were voting, but what I did was I put out a little mailer, and it was the theme of "Don't Blow Your Vote," and it was blow up balloons of VOTE with some Smarties candy, and so everyone reacted. So I only did like 5. I sent like 5 out. I'm not like a company. I'm not a conveyor belt, but I sent out about 5, and people really enjoyed it, and they like posted it and tagged it, and it got me like thinking. I'm like, oh, I definitely want to do this again. So then the idea but I didn't have an idea, so I was like, okay, well, I'll do that again when I have an idea. So then January rolled around, and I had the idea to do the sweetest content, which was just it was almost like a campaign within a campaign. I had a little curated box that I put items to help someone create the sweetest content. So we had Smarties candy. The co-president of the brand, loved what I had done with the vote mailer, and she had said, if you do something like this again, please let me know. Like, we'd love to be a part of it in some way. And then we did a mini light panel that had changeable swap out filters for different lighting and different tonalities. And then, of course, Smarties candy, and then a printed card where I was able to explain like why I did this and why you're receiving it. And a part of the reason why I was actually very lucky that my friends that I wanted to be in the shoot, the first 3 that I reached out to said yes. But I had Marquise in it, and Aaron, excuse me, and my friend Jonathan, and it kind of all come where I've seen their content specifically throughout the quarantine time, and the color and the topics that they cover and the types of content that they create, I'm always just so inspired by it. And it's like, well, I want to see more of it. So if I have the opportunity to like make something together to collaborate, let's just do that. And I never could have expected that the result would have been like these gorgeous, I mean, I did one gorgeous imagery, but Smarties like loved it. And for Valentine's Day, they had like all over their feed pictures of like queer joy, and like, just every skin tone and affiliation with like color. And it was just it was kind of like the perfect result. Like I couldn't have planned it to be that way. And I was so touched that they responded so well to it, and that my friends had fun, and they had imagery that they loved and that they were proud of. And they're people that I think are so talented, and that they should be showcased more. So if I have the opportunity, then like, yeah, let's collaborate, let's do something, let's make something happen. So that was the really long version of how that shoot came together, and then what happened after the shoot.
I love it. I was so inspired watching you do that. I've been following you for so long on Instagram simply because our mutual friend Troy told me you have to follow Gregory Littley, right, on Instagram, and like always with the best stories. And it's true, you're such a good innovator of like figuring out the new technologies and like sharing things, and you have such a good heart, and like you strike a great balance of beautiful content and curation of other people's content. Like I love your TikTok roundups as someone who is like still doesn't understand how to surf TikTok. I'm making TikToks, I just don't really know how to surf it. And like, but like I like the ones you post. So,
yeah, thank you. Right? I do work for you, don't worry.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that came about where I was, it's very popular. It's a very popular behavior that Instagram users will just share TikToks that they love on Instagram stories. But I wanted to like make sure that there was like a separation, and I want it to be intentional. I wanted people to understand why I was sharing something. So, or why I was specifically sharing TikToks on my Instagram stories. So that's kind of how the whole like super great TikToks chosen by me came up. And it's something that it was like I literally made it in like, I'm not even kidding you, maybe 20 minutes. And out of like my entire career, people will like send me voice memos where they're like super great TikToks chosen by, and then like their friend will yell me. So it's so bizarre. It's just like wow. And I even have a friend who recently told me that she'll walk around her apartment after she sees it and just like hum it to herself or sing it. So it's you never can expect what's going to resonate, because then I'll spend a lot of time on something or like a collection of things, and then people will be like, oh yeah, I saw that, are you gonna post your TikTok soon? Or I'm like, okay, cool, great. So you never really know what's going to resonate, but that's part of the fun, right? I do a lot of A/B testing on my account and learning, as you said. Like I try to kind of push myself to learn the different types of tools to make things look interesting and unique, and try to remain relevant in my own special way. But yeah, that was unexpected. People really do like that. And what's interestingly enough, because you kind of like referenced Clubhouse, is that there's new people that are finding me through Clubhouse that I haven't been doing the TikTok thing as much, because honestly, I'm one person, there's only so many hours in the day, and sleep and rest is very important to me,
Yeah.
and like staying hydrated also is like very um
I
and
thought,
they have recently,
yeah.
yes, look at you, yes, oh, that's a good one. See, I only have a little bit left, but I figured I'll be safe. My kitchen's like down the hall.
We can pause if you need to get water. I'll say like
No,
something so important to me. It's such a value.
but it's been funny to see new people that find me on Clubhouse be like, what is this that you're doing? And I'm like, oh, that's like, it's interesting, because I didn't think I really had new people. um but I just looked the other day. I was saying to my husband, I kind of hit a plateau with Instagram. It was like this, and it was okay. Like I'm not here to gain followers. What I want is like people that I work with, or that I want to work with, or that are in interesting, diverse industries, and maybe work in my same vertical and are interested in digital marketing. Like those are my people. But
Mhm.
honestly, like that's a very niche group, and I had reached like, you know, uh 19,000, I guess it was like a year or a little over a year ago. And I kind of just like bloop, just flatlined, like that was it. And because of Clubhouse, in the last like 5 weeks alone, I've gained like 1,000 more followers, and I just hit 20K. And I was like, the power, the halo effect of the, well, I mean, that's not the goal. The goal is like quality, not
Yeah.
quantity. But it was a really interesting finding that so many people have felt um, strongly enough about hearing me on Clubhouse or being a part of rooms that I've been a part of, that they take that extra step to like click on your Instagram link, and then choose to follow you. I think those kind of relationships and the reason and the connectivity, I just find those things so fascinating.
Me too. I find it, I mean, the plateau is real. And I like to, instead of it being a flat line, I'm trying to think of it as a runway, because like I know that like the next step is
Oh,
just leveling up, right?
that's
Because
wonderful.
right. And what you were saying about A/B testing too, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, oh, I've definitely failed way more times than most people have tried in terms of creating content and what's going to vibe with people. I've been blogging since 2002. So, and I'm a lot older than I look. So I've been like really, building this thing, right? Long before there was Instagram. And then my Instagram really hit a plateau during this quarantine. It's like I get new followers and I vibe out followers. It's like the more specific I've become to who I am and what I'm delivering, like it's not for everyone. People who aren't growing don't like to hear quotes motivational about growing. You know what I mean? Like, so it makes sense. And I'm just kind of trusting. I'm a very spiritual person. So I really trust the goddess with my analytics and what I'm supposed to serve, right, and create for people. So Gregory, I really specifically invited you here because you're such an expert on Clubhouse. You taught me what it was. I was like, what even is this? Do I want another app? No.
Did I teach you?
You did, because you were just talking about it on your stories, and I was like, huh, interesting,
Oh
interesting.
my goodness.
So
When was that? Was that this year?
it was this year. It was post New Year, like whenever Clubhouse was starting to like really take off, maybe in January, like, and you were pretty active on it.
Because I kind of thought you were already. I kind
No.
of thought you were already on.
You were the person
Oh,
that
okay.
taught me. So I used to think when I first got on Clubhouse, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in these rooms and these people can hear my background noise. And I would get very stressed because I'm like, oh my God, like my cat is making noise, or I just dropped this thing. And then you were the one that reached. I just sent you a DM. I was like, is my mic on? And you were like, no, you will know when your mic is on. So that's something. If those of you who join Clubhouse, your mic is not on unless you have a lot of consent about getting on a stage.
Your mic isn't on. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Oh my gosh. For some reason, I always think that like, because you have such a you have a deliberate presence on social media. So I assume, and I shouldn't assume, that's my fault, but I assume that people like yourself already have like gone and parked their name, because you want to make sure your name is the same on every platform for branding purposes and future marketing opportunities. So it's funny when you bring it up like that. But I kept trying to get Troy on. He joined I think it was maybe late January. I could be wrong, but I got Ian on first, and so I mean, Clubhouse is one of the most amazing platforms I've ever touched. It's I say that there's electricity to it, and that's so real. It is the first platform that has like uniquely been able to dimensionalize someone in real time. I think that I was saying before how I love thinking about like connectivity and like what connects us faster, and like what makes you trust a connection as opposed to other connections. And I think that, Clubhouse is really the next step. Like we had to go through all the other social platforms to kind of get here, to kind of like weed out, I love Instagram. I love it from a creative standpoint. I loved Snapchat back in the day. It was like a creator's dream. TikTok is so unique. They have so many different tools that you can play with to do your own edit, but we had to go through all of that to get to a bare bones, like down to like foundational, open your phone and you're on type of process that Clubhouse is. And I think because of that, it's offered so many people new, unexpected new paths. And now we're faced with this whole new world of audio creators.
Yeah, it's so good. Like I find like
I see you on. I always try to pull you up.
Oh, I appreciate that. You told me. So I learned from you that Kim and Kanye were getting a divorce. I didn't know. I had no idea that he was living in Wyoming. I don't pay attention to them, so like it's not my thing, but like the way I use Clubhouse is like I'll definitely go on if I'm scheduled to something. If I know a creator that I like is doing a thing, I'll go on and be in the audience. And then I also will just kind of just pop it open if I don't want to, if I'm trying to not be having screen time, but I want to feel like I'm in the mix a little, I'll do a Clubhouse, because then you can just find a good thing and just like, lay in your bed or what, which is exactly what I was doing when I was learning about Kim and Kanye's divorce from you on like hour 3 of like a Clubhouse debrief with Perez Hilton. Like, I was like, what am I walking into?
That was
so good.
That was one. I think that's that's a really good example of one way that I'm seeing activity on Clubhouse emerge. But the other methods that you just kind of reviewed, you kind of went through, those are really kind of the pillars of Clubhouse, giving people the ability to have that like free range panel discussion and connecting with people that you would never normally have access with. I think that's something that, depending on, we all just tried to survive last year, like we just tried to survive and do our best to survive. Like I wasn't looking to succeed in something. I was looking to just breathe. remain as healthy as possible and do everything I can to keep my husband healthy as possible too. And and then you have kind of Clubhouse kind of towards the end of last year picking up steam and traction, and you get on and you instantly feel this like refreshing burst of um, connection, because so many of us just didn't have that for so long. And for professional verticals, I mean, people, the livelihood is based on networking and connecting and creating awareness for yourself, and also being able to discuss who you are in front of new people. So I feel like people are drinking it up like water. Like they are just, I'm hearing screen time spent on hour increments that you wouldn't even believe. And it's and I but I do believe it all. I believe people are spending a robust amount of like heavy time on Clubhouse. So I try to I don't police myself, but I definitely want to make sure I always have a healthy relationship with any social platform. So I think it's important just to like be watchful, because I'll tell you what, the first 2 weeks of January, I I was like, huh, like my sleep pattern was off. I was on my phone. I was on like how many rooms? Oh my gosh, I'm connecting with someone that I haven't spoken to in 8 years. Oh wow, there's 5 of them. Oh great. Now, and it just went on and on and on, which was wonderful. It was great, but it was also really important to recognize, hey, this isn't sustainable and it's not healthy to continue. So, I had a really tiny misstep, and then I've course corrected since then.
Wow, that's so important to think about, like what's nourishing you. Cause like honestly, I'm an ambivert. So I get my energy either from very good connections, extroversionly, and then also from downtime by myself. So I can go either way. But it's also been so great. It's like just the access, like um anybody with a chronic illness knows that like it's difficult to always know that you can follow through with showing up somewhere. But on Clubhouse, you can be your most raggedy, the illest you felt, but still feel like you're in the mix because you're in a room and you're connecting or you're learning stuff. And honestly, the first time I was ever in a room was my friends, 2 of my friends were like hosting it. It was like a wellness thing. And they pulled me up on stage and I was like, what's happening? But then I got to walk through it with friends. And then like another friend of mine came into the room. We were able to pull up on stage, and it was very much like it was like I was in my backyard in LA again, having a big party and introducing my friends, which is my favorite thing to do, to make those connections for people. And it's just, there's so much possibility in Clubhouse, and
Yeah.
I'm excited for more and more people to get on it, who have things to say and things to learn. Because really, Clubhouse is more listening than it is talking, and I think that's the important part too.
You're right. For the first bit, I was listening in every room, and then I found my way. I followed someone that I once worked with. Not followed, but I saw that someone. That sounds creepy. Let me reset. I noticed that that I exactly, someone I used to work with was in this room, and it was filled mostly with Black and brown female creators that were really having discussions, almost like questions about the ins and outs of influencer marketing and contracting. And to me, I've had to work on that for so long. It's like the unsexy information that's in my head. So I was asked to come up on stage. Someone read my bio, and that was the first time I was on stage. Sarah Scott pulled me on stage. This woman that I'm now quite friendly with because of Clubhouse. She's Scotty Style on Instagram, I believe so.
Yes.
And she pulled me up on stage. She read my bio. She's like, "You work in brand marketing. Can you answer these women's questions?" And I was on for 3 hours, and I answered 40 some people's questions. And you never understand, like, and that's the kind of knowledge that I don't use every day. Like, and I also don't charge for, like, my talent, like making fun, interesting, strategy, content, all that's like the stuff I love. And this was just knowledge that I had to know in, like, working at like on a brand or working on an agency. And it was the ability to understand that this was knowledge that hadn't been available or just isn't commonly talked about on that level. was phenomenal. It was like electric. Like I literally remember just nonstop answering questions for 3 hours, getting off. It was like getting off of Clubhouse, like trying to figure out what just happened. I felt like so like jolted. Like I was like, whoo, and it was like midnight. So like, what am I gonna do with that energy? But it was that was really the first time that I was like, this is something extremely unique, and the possibilities are you can make this whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, and it's so and I love the culture too that's come out. And you did a really fun reel that is so right on. It's like adding value to the
Oh,
space, right? Thank
yeah.
you for bringing me to the stage. Gratitude, like focusing on how can I add value. I enter every conversation. I didn't learn this till last year as I was working on my communication skills. But like when you enter into a conversation, if you can just focus on how can I add value to this person, it's the most freeing and buoying way to enter into social interaction. And I love that that's the culture on Clubhouse. It's like, because you're
Yeah,
not going to impress anybody if you show up and just talk to hear yourself talk. And it's
right.
not like you want to impress anyone. You really do want to just add value to people. And that's why, like, I think the social boost that you're getting from your interactions on Clubhouse has to do entirely with that you are adding value, that people know you know things that they want to know, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, that's really where it's
I
so
hope
interesting.
so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think it's true. I mean, just even in your, like you did a 2 hour thing. This is why I know who Scotty Style is, because she hosted your content club. You just got everyone together. And that was such a fun add-on to like you having done this giant project of creating this amazing content. And then you're like, hey, everybody, I'm going to do a Clubhouse room about how to put together a photo shoot. I
Yeah,
love
that was her idea. I was sending her imagery, and and she was like, you need to Sarah was like, you need to hop on, you need to do a room on Clubhouse, and you need to help people understand how you organize and how you plan a shoot. There are people in the audience that are looking to like reach a next level, or may have questions, or how do you demystify this process. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, you have the questions, could you like hop on and ask these questions from like an authentic POV? So she did, and it was great. And so the room wasn't huge. I think maybe we had like a little over 200 people in the room, but I received, to this day, I still receive messages about that room, and that was like over a month ago. So it's interesting just to see how, like, what people respond to, and I think that, there was a great deal of time that you lived in New York and had access, and I live in New York, and before COVID I had access to things. And I think that I mean, I don't want to speculate on your part, but going through Clubhouse and having conversations, you start to see like how unique everyone's mind is, and like what you really have to bring and to offer. And so many things, like, I took the contracting information and like what to look out for, and usage rights and all these things that I took for granted. And 3 women reached out to me a week after I shared that information on Clubhouse, and shared with me that they booked 3 different brand deals. And it's like, wow, that's and it wasn't anything like an idea or like, a creative concept. It was just breaking down a barrier between someone being able just to get paid.
yeah.
And so and I think that that for me is one of, I mean, that I believe in that. I believe in not creating barriers between a person and payment, especially in marginalized groups. Like, I just don't. I believe access for as many people that want it, they should be able to have access to it, whether it's Wi-Fi for virtual learning in cities, or just knowledge and how to keep yourself protected when you're negotiating with like a large company. So it's been really rewarding. It's been a really rewarding, and it's just like, a fun new platform.
Yeah. Oh, it has been so rewarding. Gregory,
But I'm gonna get you up one day,
you're going
because
to do
I always invite you up, and you're always like boop 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 boop.
it. Well, listen, I'll say there's 2 reasons why I'll decline an invite to be on stage. Number one, if I am just not in a state to talk in front of people, like winding
Okay,
down to bed. And
all
number
right.
two, And also, like, I've declined invites because I know I have like a hard out at like whatever o'clock, and it's getting too close for me to wait on a stage to like talk, because I wouldn't ever want to stand someone up, right? Like by like getting on stage and then like leaving, and then you didn't know and you tried to call on me, right? Like, so that's like, those are the things that keep me
For you.
but I'm here for you. I'm here.
All right. Well, it's not gonna stop me from trying.
Good. And that shouldn't, that's, and something you had said too earlier about content creation, and some things work and some things don't. And that is part of being a creator. Success looks like failure 90% of the time. The people who make the things that like blow up tried a lot of things before they made the thing blow up. And it's like, and just being willing to be there. Okay, so I want to make sure I ask you about your coming out story, because I love being a place where people who are like out professionals in whatever way like can share the like the I think one of our biggest stories is like that moment where you get through the fear of like, what are people going to see me as in this thing that's just so inherently part of me, right? So I'm curious, like, where'd you grow up and what was it like for you and how did you come out? And also, how old are you? Because I think you're in your early 30s.
No, I'm not in my early 30s. But I will say this. So, because when you wrote this to me about my coming out story, it's like two split. I looked at it two ways. So coming out with like family and friends was definitely one path. And that was a little bit like jarbled. And I mean, I was 19 when I started like having vocal conversations. I mean, I had been having thoughts and feelings. I learned what a prom was when I was 7. And I was like, oh, so you just take a guy to a prom. And I remember being at a TJF Fridays with my mom and my stepdad, and they're like, no, do you want to take a guy to the prom? And I'm like, I don't know. So I remember kind of grappling with those kind of thoughts very young. But then once I got to be like 19, I became much more vocal. I was like, things are going on, things are happening. Like I started speaking out a lot, and my family was always really wonderful about it. Like, thank goodness. Like I'm very blessed. But the work coming out was like always like so hard for me. And the in hindsight, like I was thinking about this when you wrote the email with the questions. I was like, oh my gosh, why was the work coming out so much harder? And I think for me, it was I had this feeling that because I always knew how to really get the most out of whatever the new thing was. So at companies, I was always looked at as like, oh, well, he knows because he's like the young kid, or he knows X, Y, Z. And I always struggled with like legitimacy. Like I always struggled with like, well, no, this isn't why I know how to use it, or I know how to, make things appealing on the internet. It's because I understand packaging and like design and fundamentals of marketing, and like how to create emotional connection through people and move people through steps and processes and manipulate it till they buy. But the truth was that I always kind of had this like this hurdle, this internal like wall that I would be like, no, if I reveal too much about myself, that's just ammo to think that I'm even less legitimate. So I definitely had these issues and these problems. And then that was but the crazy thing was I was at like female-led companies, like places that were safe environments for me to be. Well, I was at Page 6, which was News Corp. So I don't recommend coming out there. But I never did, so I don't know how it went down, but I didn't feel too comfy about it. But I remember I went to my first agency, kind of post like .coms and magazines, and I had felt the most secure in my knowledge and the most secure in my talent. And the president, the woman who ran the agency, she created an environment where she wanted everyone to be the most authentic, because she knew that that was when like you were your best. And it was through that process and that safe space that she created. And I think now we use terms like inclusivity, but her name's Leslie Hall. She's not was, it is Leslie Hall. She's still living, and she has a company, Ice Media. But, you know, we talk a lot about inclusivity and things of that nature now, which is wonderful that we're having more conversations. But, you know, she fundamentally started at that point. So it wasn't necessarily about, like, it was just blended voices, walks of lives, skin tones, gender identification. Like, that was just the tapestry of her agency. And it was there that I was just like, yeah, I'm gay and I have a boyfriend and I feel comfortable saying that. And it was the best place for me to just come into that and step into it and be, you know, as much and as authentic as I could be in my professional setting. But I honestly didn't even think about it from, I was just always like, well, I'm gonna have my work life, then I'm gonna have my personal life. But with social media, it was increasingly hard for me to, like, not that I was hiding, but it was just kind of like, and I'd already was like all over. I had like 5,000 followers on Twitter. I was like, I was already like having moments when I'm like, this is gonna probably be a question, or at least people are going to see things. So yeah, it wasn't until like 2012 or 2011 actually that I felt comfortable enough to kind of just step into my truth in a professional setting.
Oh, I love it. But I love that you finally got there.
Yes.
I
yes.
was also only 19 when I came out, and it took me I tried so hard to stay in the closet professionally, but my first real job out of law school was just a solo attorney. I was the first attorney he ever hired. And like, I just couldn't not be myself. I was just like, here I am. Like, it's just like, once I got used to being myself, like it's like wearing the wrong sweater or something. Like, I can't do it. I just got to be me and not worry about that. I mean, I'm frequently worried about the consequences even still. And I have a practice of releasing it. So I'm glad that you got to the point where you felt like you could really be yourself. And that's such, I mean, it's so brilliant of Leslie, because when you get people together in their authenticity, they can bring a lens that helps to make everything stronger, because we're stronger in our diversity. I think humans are diverse by nature, like we're literally made that way, but we're socialized to feel like we need conformity in order to have safety and belonging. And you can have belonging where everyone gets to be different. Like, it's just about setting a tone and like creating a space for that.
And I think it was the shift, because prior to that I'd worked in such corporate settings, and the focus wasn't always on your talent. It was on so many other different things that you had to like kind of, and I didn't know any other way. I mean, immediately when I graduated college, I had already had a job at a magazine before I even had an apartment in New York. So I was like, I don't know how to do any of this. Like, what am I doing? And but it was always like these corporate settings, though they were like based on entertainment and, you know, publishing, so that there is still a creative realm. It was very much in a corporate setting, or they were owned by corporate entities. So I never, I just didn't feel safe, or safe to kind of, you know, have those kind of moments, or even like, I wouldn't even know how to start those kind of conversations at that time. And when I got to the independent agency, when I was working for Leslie at Iced, it was almost like without a question. Like, it was just ingrained in the tapestry, and it was intrinsic to her being and her spirit. And it was important for her that the work was good, but that the work was a great reflection of the people that put it together and that created it. So yeah. And then it's like, flash forward to when I actually get married, and it's like the most public thing. And you know, me and my husband are like on the Knots Instagram. So it's like, I've come a long way, baby.
You really have. Okay, so I'm curious where you grew up.
Yeah, I grew up right outside of Philadelphia, and then in Bucks County. And then my parents moved into Philadelphia like the last year of high school. But yeah. And then I mean, I'd always kind of, I mean, I blamed friends that show friends. I was always like, I'm going to live in New York City. But like, as if anyone, for the younger people listening to this or watching this, you're going to have to look up Friends on a streaming service. It was a show from the mid 90s that lasted to the early 2000s. You know, you should Google it. It had some humorous moments. but it also provided a really fictitious version of what young life in New York was. So
You know what? I'll say this. One of my dear friends in New York City had a loft in Soho that was totally rent controlled. And it was like somebody's like, when it was illegal that she was subletting it. But like, it was very much exactly what Monica and Rachel lived in, only they never talked about like the brick that would fall out of the wall, the asbestos, like the realities of living in that loft were not as cute as they were on TV in this set from Los Angeles. Okay. So wait, how old are you?
I don't like talking about my age.
Okay, you don't have to, but like now I'm dying to know. I feel like we might be the same age. I moved to New York City after living in Philadelphia for law school. I moved there because of Kevin Smith movies, because I got really obsessed with like the Lower East Side and that creative vibe. And I was like, and I would visit frequently. And it was a different vibe visiting New York for nightlife and enjoyment and friends and weekends than it was working in New York. Like the realities of being in Midtown during rush hour are not cute. And it's totally different than what you think it's going to be.
Well, because on one side you're going there for like fun, and the other side you're going to like build a career. So it's like very, very different reasons and needs. But I mean, I've lived in New York for over 13 years now.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. So and what an interesting time to be in New York the last year. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, you know, my mom recently said to me, and I was like, I don't know if I didn't take it as an insult, but she was like, she's like, at this stage in your life, you can only live in New York or LA. And I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Is that like because I'm wonderful and these two areas are amazing? Or is it like, do you think part of me is high maintenance and I can only be serviced in these two towns? What does that mean? So I may poke around deeper into that later.
Oh, I'm so curious. I mean, I'll say this. I think I probably could have thought the same thing of myself. Like I needed a big city. There was just like part of it. I mean, I moved from New York to LA. So I know both sides of those coins. And I was sharing with you before we started this podcast, I've been living in the forest for about 15 months now. And
That was the perfect time to do it.
I mean, I'm so grateful for my life falling apart and falling here. And I'm so grateful to know what it's like to live somewhere that's, because I used to have to leave New York once a month just to go be in the woods or like be somewhere naturey, like the beach or whatever, so that I could feel refreshed and like go back and hit it in New York. And like moving to LA was like an experiment of like, if I'm doing all this self-care just to survive in New York, what could it be like if I were in LA and I could drive to Target and things were just a little easier? And I liked it. I mean, it really was good for me. And then out here though, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is like my cell phone charger. And then I can go be in the world and be my most vibrant self and then come home and plug myself back into the woods, you know?
I mean, you have kind of the best, it's, you know, it's the Hannah Montana syndrome, the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Where, you know, and at the time where people needed space and access to nature the most, you won. You got it. You did it.
And my love for creating content is really about my love for finding peace.
The dancing videos.
The dancing videos. Like I love to create content. I've always loved being an artist and a performance artist and sharing with people. But really my heart is to figure out how to find peace and then share the recipe with people. So if people can't get to the woods, I love having that content on my stuff just because I'm lucky enough to live here and share that. And we get the internet for that. And it's so good.
I mean, I remember the videos that you were doing earlier. Wait, did you do forest videos in August?
Oh yeah, I've been doing them since I moved. As soon as I got here, I've been doing them every day.
Like a year now, right? I feel like it's been a year. Yeah, I remember the one in August, and it was right after Folklore came out, and I watched the videos, and I was like, how did she know? Like, how did she know the next wave would be like in one with nature and in the woods, just like living your best folklore life? Exactly. But you know, you did it.
Me and Taylor. I think there's something. She's so prolific. When you were talking about your vision for 2023, that's going to be your year. and getting the refund from your Lover tour ticket, I was like really thinking about this. I'm like, it's because Taylor's already reinvented herself. There's already a new, fresh unfolding of Taylor. So the folklore tour has got to be different than what the Lover tour was going to be, of course. So
I mean, I got a full refund, which to me made it was the end of 2020 with the perfect bow on top.
Yeah, it really was. Gregory, as we wrap up, I want to just get your vision. Cast me a vision for your like most ideal 2023, post-pandemic, post.
You don't have to say 2023. I feel bad because I made that. I have a running joke with my friend Kelly Will, one of my best friends, Kelly Will. And when, everything was getting so intense and so hard, and we were just, we were there for each other in terms of like discussing our hopes and our fears and the madness that was, the pandemic that was engulfing the world. And I just, to kind of bring a little bit of levity, I remember texting her, I've got a lot, I know it. 2023 is going to be our year, because it just was so hard to envision, like 2021 being completely done, or 2022 still not having some effects or ramifications of what happened in 2020 and 21. So my vision board for 2023, gosh, well, I hope me and my husband are still healthy and that we're able to work in fields that we want to. Gosh, I hope. Wow. Well, I hope I'm able to take a plane and go to a beach. That would be nice. But you know what? I hope I'm further along. Me and my husband are talking about starting a family. So I would hope by 2023 we're farther along in that journey. Because the stuff I'm looking up, it's going to take a while. There's a lot of, because we're missing a major piece, so we have to like do a lot of research and groundwork in order to kind of make that all happen. Spoiler alert.
It's expensive when you can't have procreative sex.
Yes, and that's actually the topic of my next Clubhouse room.
Really?
It should be. How much does procreative sex really cost?
I have to say, I've heard about some underground gay networks where there's like, if you've got an ova and you've got some sperm, people will swap.
That doesn't sound legal.
It's legal. If you are two consenting adults, anything is legal.
I just feel like everything that I've read to date, and I actually attended 2 like webinars.
Yeah.
It's been to like really partner with a family lawyer, someone that knows the legality of starting a family in your state,
yes,
and surrogacy laws and adoption, processes. And so I don't know if I'm brave enough to go that route.
It's a brave route. I'll tell you that as a former lawyer. I can tell you it's a very brave route to do things outside of legal protection and surrogacy and all of that kind of stuff. But I honestly think kids can't have too many parents. So, like in many ways, like if when there's a will, there's a way. And there have always been rogue people outside of the mainstream making their dreams come true and making their families happen. So like, but it is expensive. When you go the traditional route, everything is expensive. But I also think that when you have a dream on your heart, like the means come somehow. And yes. So
I agree with you. I agree with what you just said. Yeah.
Yay. Well, I'm going to vision for your 2023 to have a little baby on the way somehow.
On a beach. Baby on a beach.
Baby on a beach. Exactly.
Baby on a beach.
Maybe
that I get to on a plane.
Yes.
That I get to on a plane.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yay. Gregory, thank you so much for sharing with us. You were just so full of wisdom and heart and joy and hope and beautiful content, the sweetest content.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. And it'll mean even more to me when I'm able to put you up on stage during a Clubhouse.
It's going to happen. I'm going to put links to all of Gregory's socials in the show notes. I'm like pointing because on the YouTubes, it'll be down below. But if you want to shout them out now for the people who are just listening, where are the best ways to find you?
To find me?
Yes, you.
Oh, I am Littley, Littley on pretty much every social platform except for Twitter. I'm Littley 2 because they unexpectedly 2 years ago just suspended my account. And I'm like, could you be more specific? They're like, it's suspended. We're sorry.
That's the worst. That is so mean. And
It's so, well, just let that be a lesson that we are building. Don't build your house on rented land. Get a website going, get a mailing list, like make sure that there are multiple ways to stay connected with the people that care and follow you on the internet.
yes, own your connections. I say that all the time. At a minimum, have an email list so that you can keep up with people. It's so great. Gregory, you're an inspiration. You're a sparkly star in the world. I'm glad you're in my orbit. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.